Hello, everyone. Greetings. You are listening to Light Up Vichwa podcast, a weekly podcast on conscious living and parenting. Last week, I was talking about parental alienation. I hope you have heard this episode. If you haven't, please you can go and visit because this is the next episode regarding the same topic. And I would like, if you will listen to this, you can go back and listen to what I covered, which was the definition of parental alienation, how it is perceived in our society, whether it's in the West or in other countries. I haven't given the statistics and the quantitative data about it. If you require that, you can contact me and I can give you the links and you can find out about it. But the issue was that it is not yet recognized officially in the manual, which is called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which doesn't mean that if it is not there, that this doesn't exist. This situation, this condition exists very much like many other situations and conditions and behaviors that we have not officially recognized, but they are there. So I do not want to dwell on my episode, which I have already covered, but I do want to mention that if you want to know the beginning of this discussion, not a discussion actually, that I am talking about it from the research, finding the articles and books and witnessing myself, watching some parents doing it. Um, that's where my this topic is coming from. It's very hard sometimes to really identify that how and where it exists, and that's why all the articles you will find discuss that there is no definite clear line of finding out, but there are ways to find out, and that's what we are going to talk about. We did talk about the symptoms about of parental alienation. So this week I'm talking about what are the signs. So this is also from the article that I have shared in my show notes, and I will be sharing in this week's show notes as well. But the main thing is that the awareness that I want to bring to this topic, and I want that this is not in isolation, like parental alienation, it just happens suddenly. It is part of our personality, how we think, how we feel, what have we become when we are adults. And if we don't stop and us ourselves, and if we don't work on ourselves, our characters, our thinking, mindset, our our habits, then we pass these habits to our children, and they are going to go out in the world. And what do you think? What are they going to do? They are going to repeat the cycle, and that is what happens. That's why upbringing, parenting is so important. That's why I am uh, speaking about it. My podcast is about conscious living and conscious parenting because I learned over the years, I observed over the years. I was a child once also. So I know as much as I know that this situation exists. Thank God I personally didn't go through it with my parents, but that does not mean that I cannot talk about it because um, I have witnessed it in many situations which are in my family, very close to me, and I keep witnessing that it is happening. Then, when I researched, I found there is enough data to talk about. And it's not that it's something that we cannot change. So I will come back to conscious living, that how are we living, how are we thinking, how much we give in to our urges. And this is part of it, because if you do not pay attention to yourself, if you do not see what's good and what's not, then we are going to do such blunders. We are going to train our kids to become uh, bad and not very good human beings. And when once they are out in the world, they act and behave according to what they have seen, and that's what happens. And that's why we have what we have. So that's why we need more people who are good people, who are working on themselves and can help reduce these type of conditions and symptoms out out of hundreds and many such bad habits and mindsets that we have, uh, without going into much, just naming a few, like narcissism or self-centeredness, or being not very empathetic, and all those situations and behaviors, I would say, are there. So how to not have that or reduce that in our society? Doesn't matter where do you live, who you are, what color of skin you have, what faith you follow. As a human being, I'm talking about it. But I do know that my faith does um, help me to train and develop into a human being, if you follow, to avoid and not to do all these bad or negative things. And I think most of the faiths must be um, teaching that. But I will talk about the faith that is natural, that is universal. So, anyways, let's get into what are how can we tell that if parental alienation is taking place? I also mentioned last week that there are symptoms. So the symptoms, if the symptoms are there, then that is also um, a way to know that this is happening. But then the article that, or articles that I actually refer to out of, and the references will be in the show notes, they mention that there are ways to figure out if it is existing, because sometimes we can misunderstand, so that's where I would say that's why it is very confusing and difficult to sometimes pinpoint, because every individual is different, and how they are alienating the other parent is their own art, I guess. So let's begin with an alienator who is doing this negative uh, training of the child, is unnecessarily telling the child about the parent, the other parent, bad details, unnecessary details, to create negativity in the child by telling unnecessary details. Then the alienator might be preventing the child from talking to the other parent, because they don't want the child to get closer to the parent who is a good parent, I guess, because this parent, whoever he or she is doing the alienation. So we will call the parent alienator, as the article also calls that. An alienator may um, insist the child to keep his personal items and all the things that he or she has in the alienator's house, and not let him or her take his things to his other parent. And this happens in separations also, before, even if you are divorced. That's what I witnessed sometime recently, that this was happening. Even there was the divorce hasn't taken place, this, but the couple is separated, and one of the parents is doing that they are not allowing the child to take their things, they are not allowing the child to take many other things, their personal ID, or things of the other spouse. So that shows, or these are also signs that one of the parent is being the alienator. Let's say you are supposed to, the alienator can also, um, you know, let's, oh God, I hope nobody, I hope this this reduces, this doesn't happen too much, because this shows what type of person that alienator is. um, the alienator may be keeping the medical records of the child and his child's friends information, and all the related things that the child would want, so that they can keep the child and make them uncomfortable in a way to not go to the other parent. And this can happen during the custodies, and this can happen after the child visits one of the parents. So this can never stop if the parents don't stop. And you know what? Everybody loses in this. None of the parents, whoever is thinking that I am getting my way, ultimately is harming the child, the relationship as a human being with the other parent. And I would again bring this point, and I'll continue to bring this point in my podcast, and I have already written in my show notes that, you know what, we are answerable, we are accountable for every intention and every action we do. You don't have to believe me, but you can maybe over the years, if you have a chance, to evaluate that this happens. This is the universal law. We cannot run away from it. So that's where I get comfort, that we are all accountable. So we better, you know, fix our behaviors, pay attention to ourselves and what we are doing and how we are hurting ourselves and others. A couple of more points: that the alienator becomes so controlling of the relationship of the other parent with the child. I mean, for example, that the, the alienator is monitoring the calls and not letting the child to, um, call, because he or she is brainwashing them. If it is a normal relationship, then they won't be doing that, and they won't be worried about stopping from calling. And this is exactly what I witnessed. The one of the parents was not doing it. So there is a story about it, that one parent was not stopping them from calling. They were not brainwashing them. They were letting them go anytime the other parent wanted to pick the kids up. And this is before the custody or divorce. And this parent is, trying to be amicable and civil and not doing anything negative, so that, because this parent knows that it will affect negatively to the child, and they don't want to create negativity for the other parent. But when the children used to go to the other parent, the alienator, was doing everything that we are talking about as an alienator, and he or she was doing some really despicable things. And once they will be divorced, I am sure that person will continue to do that, which is another sad part. Hopefully, I hope they can get some sense that it is harmful for them, the kids, and everyone in the process. We might not be able to cover everything today. So I will continue this next week as well. So does it make a difference who does it? Because in past it used to be like, oh, the women are maybe alienating the child more, or it was being blamed on one gender or the other. I personally believe that it was because, and the article also talks about, and I can talk about it from the societal point of view, from the cultural point of view, because I have lived in multiple cultures and I belong to a diverse cultural background. I can tell that yes, it can happen in those cultures which are depending on how their laws are. And this again doesn't have to do anything with the faith as such, because the man-made laws are creating all these issues. And so let's say that they are, um, mother or father today can be equally alienator. As a human being, you have to be beyond this, but it doesn't matter which gender you are. So article also mentions that. that you don't have to be a male or a female to do this damage. Due to long-standing societal norms, that then we can think about that the gaps or wage gaps might have encouraged the dad, have more resources, and that happens in our societies today. And they can alienate the mom because she might be financially weak or legally unable to pay the fees and all. So then in that case, the father or the dad gets more power in the situation. And then there are other situations where they say that, oh, the moms usually get the custody, and because they by default are getting the kids, the children, they might be alienating the dad. But I personally feel it depends on the person again. You can, usually women or mothers get the children, but they don't necessarily brainwash or alienate them against the dad, just like the person I mentioned earlier was doing it. She or he wasn't really alienating the other parent. So I guess it depends on what type of human being you are at the end of the day. So I think we are out of time. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know people are very busy and don't want to spend more than 10 to 15 minutes. But I think at the end of the day, these are the things that matter for us to become a better person and to create a better world around us. And why I say that, because today when you see the chaos, it is because of the people who are not well developed in their hearts and minds, and they are not thinking of the good of others and themselves, because creating chaos doesn't serve anybody. It might temporarily make you feel good that you have been dominating that situation, but ultimately, you are accountable. So, if we keep ourselves accountable, then we might not do many things that doesn't serve ourselves or our surrounding, our environment, and this world in any form or shape. So I think the message is to try to be good human beings, and especially to kids. They are uh, beautiful beings who are younger than us, and we think that we know everything, and we have to respect our children in every situation. And even whether you get divorced or separated, I think we have to respect children and not use them in any form or shape to get back at other people or our spouses or our in-laws or the families. I think this is one of the worst things we can do to one another and our own children. And that's where it shows that we are so self-centered that we are not thinking about anything else other than us. So I hope this has been helpful. Please let me know. There will be a discussion taking place on Facebook page. If you're interested, please go to the Light Up Ichwa groups if you are part of that group. And if you are not, let me know if you want to be. There is a limit to the group, so I will add you. And there will be other discussions coming up. If you are interested, please let me know, and I will have them sooner than later. Stay well, stay happy, do good, spread positivity, take care of your health, yourselves, and I hope to see you next week, connect with you next week, and keep listening to Light Up Vichwa. And please do subscribe, share with your friends and family, and let me know what you think of this podcast or any other that you have watched or listened to. Take care. Thank you.